Okay, now we're good. All right, just wanted to come on, say hello, see who comes on. If you guys have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'm using my laptop this time, which is a little bit smarter because in the past I've used my phone and I couldn't see any of the chats that are coming in. So we'll give it a little bit. And see when, hello. Hey, Tan Man. You guys have questions? You want to just decided to come on live, see how everyone is doing? Feel free to throw something in the chat. No, Tan Man, there's some other people. You're the only one on who's typing, but I think we've got some other people coming on. Hey, Mitchell, how are you? Thanks for coming in. I think it sends out a notification for some people that they get to see, sort of what's going on, and it'll say that I'm live so that they can come into the stream. But if you do have questions, throw them in there. I'm happy to take some questions here. Otherwise, it'll be quite boring. I could just talk. If anyone wants to hear that, type that in too. If you don't want to ask questions and you just want me to talk, but I always like when somebody has a specific question. So Mike asks, hello, what do you do when your teen is hanging out with someone who is a major negative influence? Yeah, so we've talked about this, my wife and I, and we've had some, because our children are about to be teens. One of the things you do is you provide them, I know someone who did this, they provided them an alternative to the hanging out. And so what I mean by that is, let's say, whether boy or girl, whatever, and they say, hey, I'm going to go hang out with Billy, and you don't want them to hang. You say, oh man, that sucks, because I was going to go take you over to XYZ, and we were going to be able to do this and this. That's one way of actually, providing them a better alternative than hanging out with the other person. The other is obviously to talk to them, if you haven't already, about their decisions and how they get to choose what they want to do. I'll assume you've already had the conversation and saying, hey, what do you think of this person's decisions, and actually asking them about that. We've had some situations like that with our kids, and our kids will respond, thankfully, and say, well, I know that they made some bad decisions with some of the things they're doing. I'm still their friend, but if they're going to do X, Y, or Z, I'm not going to be friends with them. So, you can't avoid that your child is going to be exposed to people who are going to make bad decisions, but you obviously don't want them to be influenced and hang out with them. So I think you have to have that talk and say, hey, what do you think about their decisions? You got to be careful that you're saying no, 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 no. It's like a boyfriend or girlfriend, you say no, they're going to probably, but they probably, sometimes will rebel. So the best you can do is just give them that foundation about asking them for, hey, when you're faced with this, what are the decisions you are going to do? And the hope is obviously that it's hard because as you've had 12 years or 13 years, who are hoping that you've taught them all these things. But it's hard because if, the other thing too, is I would ask the child, what it is that they get out of hanging with them. What is it that you like about Sarah? What is it that you like about Tim? Whatever, and listen to them. And they might say, well, hey, they're actually really fun. And, so I think part of it is having a pretty mature dialogue about that. And hopefully that helps. Let's see, here's another one. Lynchy, any tips on managing work-life balance with a new baby? Having a hard time logging off time because I get pings on Slack from management after hours. Well, that's your decision of whether you need to, reply to those after hours. So here's my story is, I was a consultant and have been for many years. And I created my own problem by responding to those. I can ask my assistant and say, I send things at all times of the night. It just depends on when someone's going to respond. But if you're asking me to, what are the tips? Well, you can tell management that you have a child and you can't respond, or you can not pay attention to your child. You've somewhere it's going to break. You can't be everything to everybody at all times. And I think, it's kind of, I don't know that there's an answer to that, because you have a 6-month-old and you also have to, take care of some business. So if you have a significant other that can swap and share times, but it is difficult. If you're a full-time, employee or business person and you also have a young child, it is tough. There's not really the only thing I can say is that you just block out time and you say, well, I'm not going to do work during this time. I'm not going to check my phone. I'm going to put my phone down. That's the only really thing that you can do. So Abe asks, any tips on how to work on patience with a 6-month-old baby? Yeah. Are you asking for your baby to have patience, or you have patience? I'm assuming you. Yeah, there's a lot. You can't take things personally. I mean, patience usually means that something's sort of getting at you. And patience, the loss of patience oftentimes is because we don't understand what's going on, or we don't know how to handle a situation. At least that's for me. So a lot of what will happen for me is, I lose my patience because I get upset with some situation. And so that is yourself. And that is working on mindfulness. It's taking deep breaths. It's taking time. It's meditation. These are the things. I have a video on patience. There's one, you can probably just search for it on the channel. That would probably be a good one to go over. David, I have a few questions. I have a 9-year-old girl. I'm mentally preparing for a specific topic of discussion, puberty. I'm a little nervous about this conversation. How do I know that I've said the right things and covered everything possible? So David, what I would suggest, go and get a book. I don't know the exact name, but there's a lot of them on Amazon, and it's about children going through puberty. And you use that book as the springboard for discussion. I've done this. It worked really well. You give your child the book and you say, hey, we're going to read this together. And guess what? It's going to probably be uncomfortable for you at first, but so what? It needs to be done. That's part of being a parent. So what you do is you give them the book and or read it together. And then that, like what I did was, we read a chapter, he read a chapter, and then we discussed what was going on in that chapter. And then we said, hey, are there any questions about that? It was really good to have the guidance of the book, as it covered a lot of different topics and some things that I probably wouldn't have thought of, and in a way that's very understanding. And so then it lends itself to be able to then have the discussion afterwards. So I think that would be the best thing. Like, guys, you coming in quick here. Jackson, awesome. You've been a dad for a little over 2 weeks. Good to see you in here. Guys, I would recommend too, if you're not, well, you're probably on here because you're subscribed. I'm going to be releasing a webinar soon. Be on the lookout for it. It's a free webinar. You can sign up, and we're going to be going over some things about being a better dad. It's going to be free, so don't worry. But I'll also talk about my program a little bit. So it's going to be hopefully next week. I'm going to be launching that. As you can see, we've been busy. I've got a lot of new videos that have been coming out, back on the horse. I was gone for a while, and that's simply because I was creating the program that I now have. It's a comprehensive course. with curriculum. It's live Q&A with me every week and coaching. If you are interested in that, there's a link on my on all the 3 recent videos, or you can go to the website daduniversity.com and click on program, and that you'll have access to me, access to private discussions, and then also a pretty specific curriculum as far as everything from mindset, dealing with a partner, communication, all of that. David, thank you very much. That was very nice of you. I think, understanding like all the different aspects of being a father is really important. When you have a week-old or you have a 6-month-old, you are not, in most cases, most people aren't thinking about parenting. They're thinking about surviving. You're thinking about changing, feeding, all that stuff. So this course and this program is really designed for people who are in the parenting stage. So it's like kind of 1.5, 2 plus with their kids' age. And once you get there, that's where you start worrying about all the other things. And that's when you need some assistance and you need some coaching. So be sure to check that out if you are interested. We're making new videos for everybody. If you guys have questions, put them in the chat. I'm trying to get over to these. Let me see if there's anything I missed. Tan Man asked, what do you do as a job? I have multiple jobs. I do this. A lot of my time is this. And then I also have been doing internet marketing for 20 plus years. So, Rizwan, any tips on creating a good sleeping pattern for a newborn? Yes. I actually used a sleep program. There was I want to say it's, get your baby to sleep kind of thing at the time. And there were a lot of good tips. The biggest thing is the schedule. And you've got to do, it's 2 things. It's schedule and it's routine. And, for a newborn, you can't force too much. Different newborns have different schedules and their rhythms, and you can try to get them to sleep, but we bought a shirt or a onesie for my son when he was born, and it was like, party in my crib at 2 a.m. He just wanted to be up in the middle of the night. And so, luckily my wife was breastfeeding. And so she would be up in the middle of the night. And then when I was home and I was able, because I'm self-employed, I would watch him during the morning so that she could sleep. You have to figure that part out. But for tips for sleeping, I would say try to get on a good feeding schedule and a good nap schedule. And there's a lot of people that are better experts at that than me. What that worked for us is just being pretty diligent about the sleeping and the feeding at the same time all the time, and being pretty good about that. And then also we called it starting the descent, which was, when we knew that the bedtime was 6 o'clock or 6:30, which is good, very early bedtime. We would start at 5:30. We'd do the bath, we do the thing, and like just making sure we're consistent with that time. Hey, Billy, or I'm a bad fish 92. Billy here. Just found out my fiance is pregnant, wondering what the best things are that I can do for her during pregnancy. I would suggest you watch some of the previous videos that I had. I've got a lot of videos on pregnancy and how to help your significant other during that time. That's probably the best, just so I can get to some of the other questions. But the best thing you can do is support her, being empathetic, of looking at it from her perspective, understand she's going through her own stuff. There's a lot of things that you can do. But the other thing is probably the best is ask her. Ask her what you can do and how you can be supportive, and say, I really want to be there for you. I want to help. What are some things that you would want me to do? See what she says. Every woman's different. A T3, expectant father, awesome. Glad the videos are helpful. Good to have you here. A nearban DOS, how do you balance your work and manage a newborn? Well, I just had said that. You don't. You've got to allocate specific time or, write it on the calendar. It's very, very hard. It depends. If you have a significant other, or you have family, or, something that obviously makes it a lot easier. But it's hard. It's hard because you have to be able to manage your time, and you can't be perfect in every situation. You're not going to be the most amazing parent and the most amazing employee or entrepreneur or anything, and then the best son or daughter, and then the best, husband or wife. It's like, you can't do it all. You can't. So you can be good at one thing one at a time, and maybe at one day you're allocating, you say, I'm going to work extra long on this day, but then, or talk to your boss and say, hey, I really want to, move my hours or something. Maybe you can move your hours to morning and be done earlier, or, you just got to be creative with it. And most bosses nowadays have to be, or if not, most of them are, as long as you're getting your work done, most of them are pretty flexible, unless you work in a facility or you work on certain hours. But other than that, you got to ask for it. There's no harm in asking. Peyton said, what's the one thing now that you wished you knew when you had your first child? Whew. Oh, there's so many. Well, I always answer with empathy. That's the obvious one. I wish I was more empathetic towards my wife and towards my child when my child was born. Of just really understanding that it wasn't just about me, and I would get upset at things or take things personally, and all of these things I've learned now that you just don't know what you're doing. I'm an expert now because I've been through it and made a ton of mistakes. I did go through parenting classes and studied a ton and did everything, but I still make mistakes. If you just watch my, call it mistakes or learning experiences. If you just watch my most recent video, being overwhelmed, I talk about, I was yelling at my kids, and the difference is that I'm realizing what I'm doing and I'm able to process it and stop and fix things. But maybe that's the answer. What's the one thing I knew is that I was going to make a lot of mistakes and that those mistakes are okay. Maybe is that a good answer? Sean asks, what do you recommend financially before getting into a relationship? Currently single, and I watch your videos to be prepared in case something were to happen. That's one of the smartest questions I've heard. Not many single people think of the financial aspects of it. Being financially stable is certainly something that you have to consider before getting into you're talking about two different things. One's getting into a relationship. The other is having a child. It depends on your financial situation and the financial situation of your spouse. Here's the thing, my spouse and myself, we were both financially independent when we came together. And so, yes, that does make things easier. We also had assets. Each of us had assets. So there was a lot of agreement in, hey, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. And then, what we build together builds together. When you get together, you don't plan on being apart. But the reality is that 50% of the people end up, getting a divorce. So just be prepared that, something could happen. So I think just getting yourself financially stable is probably a good thing. Only got a couple more minutes here. If you've got any more questions, throw them out. How'd you guys like this chat? Put in a thumbs up or let me know if this is something that you would like to see regularly. I've done some, in the past. Sometimes it's hard to find the time in between recordings and things to do this, but I like coming on and just answering some questions. It seems kind of fun. Maybe we can switch colors and you guys can decide Which color you like? How about that one? Does anyone like red? We'll do a vote. How about green? There we go. Let's do green. What's the best way to deal with bad moods after naps? Our toddler is currently waking up very cranky. So Mike, I'm not a sleep expert, but I might say that your toddler might not be getting enough sleep. Could that be the case? You know, taking the naps, maybe having them go to bed a little bit earlier. Mike, if you can, maybe you can write in what time do they go to sleep at night and what time do they get up in the morning. I was very surprised when I learned about sleep training that we were letting our child go to sleep too late. It was actually 6:30, I think, that we looked at it at going to sleep. And so that was something that, we just realized our child was going to sleep way too late. So they actually weren't getting enough sleep. So that could be, the other is toddlers are just cranky. I mean, I hate to say that, but they are. Well, so go to around about 9 and then getting up at 8:30 or 9 in the morning. Wow, that's good. I guess that's 12 hours, but I would say try to go to bed at like 8 or 7:30 and see what happens. Try it a little bit earlier bedtime and see what happens. They do need 14 hours or so. Oh, he's getting 2 hours in the afternoon. So that's pretty good. I mean, a lot of people are, I don't know that that's a specific problem that you have or what you're doing. Maybe it's just when he does get up is do something enjoyable, find something that, he enjoys so that when, I said son, I don't know that it's a son. It could be a daughter. It could be something that just they enjoy. Just like, that they love this game. So right when they get up in the morning or in the afternoon, you have a game ready for them. That the crankiness and the toddlerness doesn't last forever. That's the one thing about parenting is like none of the stages last forever. It's like you feel like you've got it under control and then something else happens. So, David, I think doing this regularly would be great. Knowing that I could reach someone with more experience to help me through something in the moment, that would be pretty helpful. David, depending on your situation, you might want to consider our program. If you do have, let me see here. The Dad University program is access to me on a weekly basis. And also has our curriculum, and that could be helpful. Because then if you had questions, you actually could ask them anytime you wanted. If you do that, you can go to the website, click on program, and check out a little bit more about that. Mike, you agree? Tune in whenever I can go live. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to have a set thing. I did a class, I did a live show for a while. That was fun. It's a lot of work, especially if I have to prepare. But if people come with questions, then I don't have to prepare. But, then you have the silence when nobody's asking a question, and then you have to fill it. Otherwise, you guys would just sit and watch me sit here. That's not that exciting. So, see, like now, nobody's typing in more questions, so we just all sit here in silence. I can sing. I can't sing. I won't sing. Any other questions that you want to ask? Sean, I will discuss it. If you sign up, I'll discuss it because it kind of depends. It's, if you do that. Sharkrish, how to convey a message with our children when we are in a bad mood. I'm not sure if you watched my latest video, being overwhelmed, but I talked just about that, of how I conveyed the message that I was pretty honest with my children and just said, here's what I'm feeling right now, and here's why. But I need to be better at, dealing with that. And it's not anything that they're doing. Granted, if they could be obnoxious and loud, it doesn't help because you are already on edge. But that's my problem. That's my problem, to not be able to regulate that and control that. So that's how I would communicate it. I mean, it's being honest. When you start, if you start when they're very young and you have honest conversations with them, it becomes much, much easier. As they get a little bit older, like my kids are 12 and 10, it's easy for me to have that conversation with them, just because I've been having that conversation for so long. So, I forget sometimes, like I yelled at my kids the other day, but I immediately was realized, okay, this is not how I wanted to come home from work. And so I explained to them and just said, I'm sorry, I could have handled that better. That's always a good line. I apologize, I could have handled that better. Or, hey, I'm not feeling great right now. And unfortunately, I'm just, I'm not communicating in my best way. That's it. You just be honest. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Keola, what's the biggest difference I should expect having a son versus a daughter? Wipe in the other, and just make sure with a daughter you're wiping in the right direction. That's it. Away, you're wiping front to back. Other than that, you treat daughters and sons pretty much the same. In fact, I have some videos about that. My daughter, I made it very consciously, or I made a conscious effort to treat her very similar to my son. And that was being physical. It was doing the things that I did with my son. It was, we used to call her our little dirt girl. She would go and be in a dress and then rolling around in the dirt. And, she entered martial arts with her brother. There is no difference. In fact, I don't think they should be treated differently. Boys and girls are different by some, not only physically, but there are some brain and things, but the majority of those things and the way that we deal with them is from our interactions with them. So in general, I had a doctor who had talked about this, men or say fathers with their sons act differently than they do with their daughters. With their daughters, they're more cerebral. They might sing. They might be a little bit more affectionate. They more talkative, versus with their sons, they're more physical. That's just what dads think that they should be doing. Doesn't make any sense, but that's what they do. So I think, if anything, you blur the lines a little bit, you treat them the same way. And then as they develop and as they grow, then those differences become a little bit more apparent, but there's other outside influences in those differences, but my daughter can do anything a boy wants to do. And if my son wants to do something a girl wants to do, that's cool too. It doesn't matter. I think, if anything, rather than boy, girl, we probably treat them differently based on their personalities and spirit. That's probably a bigger way that we differentiate how they're dealt with each other, or how we deal with them. Whereas my son might be one way, and I know that if we have a discussion, it's I treat it a little bit differently in how I would discuss it or approach it with my daughter. Maybe that's the difference, but it has nothing to do with whether they're boy or girl. My newborn son, Steven, my newborn son is 1 week. Is it weird that I'm thinking about mental development? No. Like autism? No. Nothing is weird. Those are all valid concerns. We're always concerned about the health and mental well-being of our children. And so you're going to have those kind of thoughts your whole life. Like I said, my kids are older, and I constantly think about, just that their safety and that they're making a decision that's good for them. And it's the consistent worry about parents. Peyton, what's the most rewarding part of being a dad? That's another good question. Wow, most rewarding part. I can tell you the times when it's rewarding is when you have been teaching something or talking about something and then you see it happen. So an example of that is, like me getting upset at some situation and, telling my kids, what, hey, I'm really sorry for the way I handled that. And then just the other day, my daughter got upset, said something, yelled, whatever, and then comes back, a minute later and says, Dad, I'm really sorry. I got upset at a situation with my friend and I shouldn't have taken that out on you. Like, when your children learn these life coping skills that I teach, whether it's empathy and gratitude and all these things about, taking responsibility for your emotions. I mean, there's so many things that when your kids do that and you see that it's something that's going to benefit them for their life, that to me is the best. Sure, there's the total answer of like a hug, unconditional love, all that stuff. But like when you see that they're growing and they're maturing and they're using skills that you have given them in a very positive way, and that those, I've worked very, very hard doing video, just harder than I do working at these videos and helping everybody here. I do it with my own family. And so it is wonderful to see that result happen, where my son, goes over and is empathetic towards his friend, or my daughter is communicating and she's upset and she's communicating with her friend about her feelings and saying, listen, I was upset at this situation. I know it's, my fault, but whatever. It's just really cool seeing that. Good stuff here. People are good participating. Monal, my daughter wakes up angry and nothing is fast enough for her. How do I teach her patience? Well, she's 1.5. You won't teach her patience yet. Don't expect that you will. At that age, they're not patient. They're not going to be patient for years. Some people are 40 years old and not patient. So I think it goes the opposite. I think it's you have to change your expectations, that thinking that she's going to be patient or that she has to be a certain way. I think you have to, as parents, this is what I teach so much of. We so often try to, and I apologize. I'm not coming at you that you're incorrect. I'm just trying to help. I think what happens is as parents, so much, and I did this for years. So many problems that we have are up here. It is our problem. It is, we deal with things like it's like the exception or like accepting that it's our fault, or, we take responsibility for something, or, we blame ourselves, or, all of the psychological blah that we deal with. We bring so much of that to our children. And I had put this in my video the other day, where it's like my children were being, for all intents and purposes, obnoxious. They were at dinner yelling or like just being wild. They had come in from outside and they had been playing and they're just energetic and everything. Well, I came home from work and it's like, I didn't want to hear any of that. Like I had not had a good day. And for me, it was too much. And so of course, it's my problem. It's not theirs. Like, yes, they could be better and they could say, they could calm down, but it's like the fact that something annoys me, or the fact that I was talking with someone about it, the fact that somebody gets offended at something, it's their issue. It doesn't make what is being done correct. It doesn't make what somebody does or says or acts out, fine. But it is your responsibility to handle how you react. And so I'm always interested and curious when someone's, this is something I teach too, of like, you hurt my feelings. Like, no, you didn't. You said something. I decided for my feelings to be hurt, and we push the responsibility of our emotions on everybody else. And it's a waste. It's a waste because you're giving somebody else control of your emotions. And that's not a good idea. It's the same thing of like somebody says something and two people are listening and one person gets completely offended by what the person said. And the other person says, that person's kind of crazy. Like, why would they say that? Like, it's not a big deal. So what's the difference? Well, two people heard the exact same thing, but they interpret it different. And they interpret it different because they assign different meanings to things. The one person could have had trauma as a child related to that subject, or they have a different cultural background. And so they're offended by, there's so many reasons why. That doesn't make it right, wrong, whatever. It's just every one of us interpret things in our own way. And we take so much of it personally that, that's something that I think we push onto our children, is that we get stressed out, we get impatient, we get upset, we get angry, we get all these things. But it's our job to change our responses to that. And yes, we need to teach our kids manners. Yes, we need to teach our kids to be more patient and have gratitude and all of these things. But we first got to work on ourselves. And that's what I try to do with a lot of my videos. And so, a lot of the problem with everybody and everyone, saying about they're so sensitive to everything is everyone is hurting inside. And when you are hurting or you get something affects you that deeply, usually there's a reason for that, versus people that stuff, somebody says, somebody does, and they're just like, okay, like, that's up to you. Like, that's your thing. And that kind of attitude has like shifted me like 180. Like if my wife is upset at something, it's never me. No, I'm just kidding. I can really look at it most of the time and be like, she probably had a crappy day. She's upset about something. And you know what? Like, is there anything I can do? So like her yelling at me isn't, in the past, I would have been totally offended and said like, how dare you yell at me? Don't talk to me that way. And granted, she can be nicer in that. My wife doesn't yell ever, but it's really up to me on how I interpret it, and I think that that's something that we need to keep in mind. So with that, wow, I stayed way later. I hope my kids are, yeah. But thank you to everybody who hung around here. It was fun. Maybe I'll try to do it again. And make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go do that. And then also, if you want any information about the program, go to the website, click on program, sign up, and get a call. We can have a free chat. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.